Well, as you can see, we're joined now in the studio by Elena Pompei, who worked on this documentary. Hi, Elena. Thank you for coming in to talk to us about this. Tell us, first of all, what's happening now in Georgia? What's happening today? Are the protests still ongoing? How long for?
Yeah, so the protests are still ongoing every day. It's quite impressive. The demonstrators have been gathering every night, although it has, we have to say that the scale of the protests has diminished, although the repressive measures have increased. So what we see now is that while at the height of the protests, the police crackdown was incredibly violent. So people were being arrested and beaten hundreds every week, including the protagonist of a documentary, which you've just seen. He was stopped during a peaceful protest and beaten for hours and then left with a broken nose and a concussion. Now, the government has put surveillance cameras all over Tbilissi to identify protesters and fine them with fines that are incredibly disproportionate to the average salary in Georgia. So this is a new form of repression. So that's the reason why protesters now wear masks in gatherings.
And why, what caused all this uproar in the first place?
Well, it goes back to 2023 when the ruling party, which has been the same for decades, so over a decade now, so Georgian Dream, tried to pass a law known as the Russian law or the Foreign Agents Law, which kind of imposed on NGOs and independent media to be registered as organizations bearing the interests of a foreign power if more than 20% of their funding came from foreign donors. There was a similar law that was passed in Russia in 2012 that the Kremlin used to suppress opponents. And this is the reason why protests started at that time and then went on until 2024. And then in November 2024, legislative elections resulted in a new victory by Georgian Dream, although there were numerous reports of irregularities and issues with voters' intimidation, to which the European Parliament responded with a call for new and fair elections. And the Georgian government decided to halt all EU talks until 2028. Which caused a huge uproar in the country, and they haven't stopped since.
And, how widespread is this pro-EU sentiment?
It's quite incredible. 89% of Georgians are in favor of EU integration. Rati is, of course, one of them, although there are some differences between, the older generation and the younger one, and of course, rural areas. There's still some sort of post-Soviet sentiment. There's a nostalgia for that time, which they felt was, a time of stability, a time of security. The other protagonist of a documentary, Nino, is half Russian, half Georgian. And yes, she's strongly against the protest and against EU integration, as she sees it as a way of provoking Russia, and they don't, the geographical proximity to Ukraine makes it kind of like a threat. They fear that those might be the same steps that took place in Ukraine and might happen for Georgia as well eventually.
Okay, well, so where can we find this documentary?
The documentary on our YouTube channel is ENTR English, ENTR, and you can find it there together with many other episodes within this series.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Elena Pompei there. Thank you so much for joining us.